The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. I identify as a proud pony. Pony stands for parent of neurodiverse individual. Those, before you write to me, those are the words that my son has given me to describe my relationship to his diagnosis. I know everybody uses just different words, and oh my gosh, we celebrate that, embrace it, and enjoy that here. So if you use different words to describe yourself, it's okay. I'm just telling you what words that my son and I have decided that describe my relationship to his diagnosis. Parent of neurodiverse individual. I know there's a movie out now that's ponies, P-O-N-I-S, and they're saying that it stands for person of no interest, but not here. That's not what it means here. So it's going to get confusing. But anyway, so thrilled and excited to be here with you this morning, and I'm extra jazzed today because of where I was last night, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But before we talk about all the good stuff and what's happening today, because today's going to be an interesting show, my friends. Before we do all that, I just want to say that I'm sending love to all of our friends and family members who are in Minnesota, but also our friends and families everywhere around the world who are dealing with all kinds of different things today. I want you to know that we're seeing, we're hearing, we're watching, we're asking the questions about how can we be of service to you. And as we find out the things, if we find out something that you can all do, we will let you know. So just want to let you know that we are watching and that it's important. I also want to say too, on the side of things, that this week, in Congress, they're going to begin to discuss, because there is at least a proposal to eliminate some of the key elements of IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's going to be discussed this week in Congress, specifically what they want to get rid of. Everybody get ready. They want to get rid of all the things that help support parents to know what their rights are. We've talked here on the show about the Parent Center Hub. They're looking to eliminate it. So there's a lot of reasons to call your Congress people right now, and that's one of them, and let them know how you stand on it, what your opinions are. We welcome your thoughts about that, but just wanted to put that out there. So where was I last night? Every once in a while, I have the distinct pleasure and privilege to have an opportunity to visit some of the centers for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I just want to do a shout out. Last night, I was at our Simi Valley Center in Simi Valley, California, with a group of parents that inspired me so much. First of all, I just love that center. The leadership at that center is just stunning. And just makes me so excited every time I get the opportunity to go there. As a parent, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but the idea that there are bright, brilliant, happy, excited people who love our kids and want to work with them to help them to have brilliant self-esteem and learn all the things that they can learn. The fact that those people are there and they're on the floor and playing with our kids, it just takes my breath away. I'm so grateful for their existence. And oh my gosh, that center is filled with people that are so excited about our kids. Like I said, I don't know if you can relate, but sometimes there are people who act like being in a room with our kids is a chore or worse. Right? When it's not. And our kids are amazing and brilliant and wonderful. And to be surrounded by a group of professionals who live that every day, just makes me cry. It really does. My gratitude is just boundless. But then to get to sit with a group of their parents who are taking advantage of that and who have questions. I will tell you, the most of what we talked about last night is the situation with schools and how dire it is and some of the ridiculous things that are happening at IEPs. If that is you, by the way, please check out last week's show that we did talking about the difference between 504 and IEPs. Maybe that was the week before last. I'm not sure. But it's got a lot of information about what's happening in the schools right now and what your child might be facing if they follow through with what they're asking at the IEP. So check that out. By the way, we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is here at the helm, and thank goodness for him. I don't know what we would do without him. But he's going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with the show. The chat is open right now, and we are taking questions or comments or anything that you guys want to write in right now. I know that there are many of you who will watch live, but there are many, many, many more of you who will listen in podcast. We love you all. We love you equally. However you want to consume our content, by the way, if you want to watch on YouTube because you need to see what crazy things my hair is doing today, I appreciate that. So we encourage you to watch wherever is best for you to get content. We do have two very robust YouTube channels. We have the Autism-live YouTube channel, and we have the Ask Dr. Doreen YouTube channel. Both of them have now 15 years of content. I mean, shut the front door. 15 years of content there that you can check out. It's picture and sound. But we have a free podcast downloads on every podcast platform that there is. Now, those will come with ads. And so what we like to remind you is if that does not sync with how you're consuming your podcast and you need continuous play with no ads, we encourage you to go to glow.fm/autism-live. Everything we do at the Autism Network is there for $5 a month. You get every new show that we do. It shows up automatically in your inbox with no ads for $5 a month. So we're not getting rich on that. We're not even making money on that, my friends, but we like to be able to get it to you in a way that we can keep the lights on. And when you're consuming it on the podcast platforms, there are advertisements that help us to keep the lights on. So, but the chat is open. So here is the deal with today's show. I've been talking about this guest for a month. We're so excited that we had booked Brad Levy from EEG to go to be with us today. Something has happened. I don't know what. We haven't been able to get a hold of Brad. Fingers crossed everything's okay. And maybe it's just a scheduling conflict. Maybe he will show up. I don't know. But if he's not here today, we'll book him to come back because it's a very important conversation about getting EEGs for your child. And when our kids are on the spectrum, it's just harder, right? And so often you guys will write in and say, that we've got some things that are going on. We did the 5-minute or the 1-hour EEG. And what all we know now is that they didn't have any kind of an episode during that time. And really what you need is a 24-hour EEG. But, that's hard to do with our kids on the spectrum. So they've got a great, great service that they provide. And if we don't end up talking about it today, we will talk about it on another day. So when you host a podcast, sometimes things go awry. It's just like being a parent. Do you know what I'm saying? That you have a plan and then the universe says, here's another plan. Just last night, I was reading on Facebook because, I have friends on Facebook with a lot of other podcasters, and somebody who is on the spectrum had posted and said they were in their studio, they were ready to go, and 2 minutes before the show, the guest called and said, hey, I got to reschedule. I got something. It happens. Believe me, we've been here for 15 years. It happens. But for that individual who had this whole show ready to go and it was like, and they were talking about what a difficult time it was for them, and posted a picture of them laying on the floor face down in the hallway outside the studio. And I felt for them. But we have been doing this long enough that we roll. We just roll and we'll see what happens. Especially because today, for the first time, we're introducing jargon that we've never introduced before. And I remembered when I put it in the show, I was like, oh, we need to have lots of time to talk to Brad, but we could talk about the jargon today for a full hour. So I don't know, we might. We might, because the jargon term today is medically enhanced ABA. Now, here's something that's fun. Because we've been doing this show for so long, every once in a while, this thing happens where I run into us online. I'll explain. There was years ago, somebody was telling me, expounding on the virtues of volcanically enhanced water. And I was like, oh, I guess I want to know more about that. Like, what's the deal with that? And why are we being told that we need to drink water that comes through volcanic ash or whatever it is? I'm sure I'm getting it wrong now, but I wanted to know more about it. So I searched it up online and found a video of myself interviewing someone talking about it. And I was like, oh, I've just crashed into myself on the internet. But they gave all the information that I need. I just didn't remember it, even though I was the person doing the interview. And I found that really funny. But sometimes somebody will use a jargon term that I'm like, I don't know what that jargon term means. And I will look it up and I find jargon that we have done here. I find that hilarious. It proves that my memory is horrible, but that we've covered a lot of things over a lot of years. So this happened this week. I was like, oh, I want to do medically enhanced ABA for the jargon. And so I'm going to look up what the terms are. And what I found was, because this term really, the credit for coining this term goes to Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. And what I found were quotes of Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh online. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. I run right back into our content. So we're going to do jargon a little bit different today. You know, normally we started out, it was an actual definition, then it was a working definition that we could access. Then we switched to, showing you two contrasting ones, showing you an AI and something else. Well, today we're only going to show the AI in two different sections. Because then we're going to talk about it, because it's a relatively new term, and because the term, really started with our show, Ask Dr. Doreen. So let's take a look at when I looked up Google AI, what they said medically enhanced ABA is. Medically enhanced ABA, applied behavior analysis, is a holistic, interdisciplinary approach that combines traditional behavioral interventions with medical treatments to address underlying physical issues, examples being gastrointestinal problems, sleep issues, or infections, and within the context of individuals with autism. So, and then it goes on to say, let's go on to the next slide, if you will, Chris. By treating these underlying health factors, the child's overall well-being improves, allowing for faster, more effective learning during ABA sessions. This collaborative model involves behavior analysts working alongside pediatricians, which can lead to better treatment outcomes and reduced stress for families. I love so much about this that I wanted to include the whole thing, because it has, some of the basics about it, but some of the philosophy behind it. And not just philosophy. I mean, the research is pretty clear, and it's kind of the duh, right? But if someone is healthy, they are better set up for success in everything that they do, which includes learning a new skill, which includes communicating, which includes sleeping better, which includes having better relationships with the people around them. And that all reduces your stress. So I love this. And I want to tell you a little bit about the history of this. And then let's talk extensively about it. So Dr. Granpeesheh has been working in the field of autism for over 45 years now. And so she's seen a lot of things come down the pike. And she synthesizes things at a rate that is just faster than anybody else I know. It must be exhausting for her, because she's the most intelligent person in the room almost all of the time, at least when I'm there. You know what I mean? But she tells the story of a long time ago doing an intake with a family and spending a great deal of time because she was a follower of Bernie Rimland, Dr. Bernie Rimland, many years ago. And if you don't know about Bernie Rimland, you should look him up and follow the people who followed Bernie Rimland. Unfortunately, he passed away about 15 years ago. It was right after we started doing the show. And it was a bummer because I had not yet, it was a bummer all the way around, let's be honest, but we had hoped to have him on the show. And he passed away rather suddenly, and people were devastated because he had a lot of people following him because his philosophy was, these are people. These are people that are whole people. They are their own little ecosystem, and they have things that are interacting within them, but they're people. And we need to look at them and the challenges that they're having through the lens of being a human being. And that if a child is rocking, there's a reason why. And if the reason is intestinal pain, then we just don't put that under the category of, oh, that's autism and we're not going to do something about it. The child's in pain. And we need to be people seeing a person and address that. Now, I know that sounds like, well, duh, isn't that what everybody would do? But unfortunately, you know how things go. And when people put things into a category, and certainly people had put the category of autism and they started stuffing all these things into it, and then they would raise their hands and go, well, there's nothing we really can do about that. And if you are a person in this community, and if you're watching this show, you're either a person in this community because you're the person that has the diagnosis, or you love someone who has that diagnosis. And we know, all of us in that community, we know sometimes you go to the doctor and they'll just go, oh, well, that's autism. And which is code for, so we're not going to treat it. We're not going to try to figure out why this person is in pain. And not even just like some doctors will just medicate stuff. Listen, I remember as a parent that I started having a lot of medical problems after my son was diagnosed, which, were stress related, but also autoimmune related, which is also stress related. But I remember going to the doctor trying to find answers, and they just wanted to give me Valium. I had so many prescriptions for Valium that just sat there because I was like, I'm not going to take Valium. I need to be able to drive my car to be able to take my child to his therapies. Can somebody help me with something other than just medicating me to a level where I can sit and go blah, blah, blah in the corner? And listen, Valium is appropriate for some people. It wasn't for me at that time. Maybe it will be soon. I don't know. I don't mean to make fun of that. But my point is, it's not enough to just dismiss it and say that's part of the diagnosis and just live with it or deal with it, or it is what it is, right? It's not enough to just go, well, let me put some sort of medication, some panacea that goes on the top of it that doesn't really address the issue, that things are happening for a reason. Don't we all wish that we had access to House? The character on House, that he was relentless, that he was going to find what the reason of what's happening is. And we all want that. Well, Bernie Rimland was about that, and the followers of Bernie Rimland are also about that, and Dr. Granpeesheh was one of them. So there's Dr. Granpeesheh, and she is in an intake with a family, and they've got a little girl that they brought to her with high hopes of helping her because she's on the autism spectrum and she's not speaking. And so Dr. Granpeesheh, who believes in a thorough intake of understanding who this person is, this human living being, who are they? What are their challenges? What are the clues, right? And she talks about that a lot on the show. But so she spent over an hour with this family asking them every question under the sun, and about everything, what was she like when she was born? When did you see this? What does she eat? What does her poo look like? All the things, right? And then they get to the end, and Dr. Granpeesheh says to the family, is there anything else you can think of? Anything that's going on with her that, you may not think is related, but anything at all? And the mom says, no, I can't think of anything else. And she goes, well, but it's nothing to do with this, right? And Dr. Granpeesheh is like, what? Just tell me. And she goes, well, she's got this fungus on her nails. At the bed of her nails, she's got this fungus, and it's on her toenails and it's on her fingernails. And Dr. Granpeesheh looks at this little girl's, and right at the cuticle, there's this line of fungus. And my mic is, Chris is telling me I gotta fix where my mic is. Thank you. So I'm gonna put it here. So anyway, she's got this fungus on her fingernails. And the mom says, but I'm sure that has nothing to do with this. And Dr. Granpeesheh says, well, I mean, it can't have nothing to do with it. This child has a fungus overgrowth, and that's not nothing. That's something. And that would certainly affect a lot of the different things that she has going on. So she sent her to a doctor specifically who would listen and just look at the fungus thing and see what was happening and treat that, because that needs to be treated. And suddenly, this little girl, when this was taken away, which was affecting all of these things in her ecosystem, suddenly started learning at a much higher rate, and suddenly began speaking. And suddenly, all these things that had been so hard for her became easier, and she could learn and grow and made tremendous progress. And it really cemented for Dr. Granpeesheh this whole idea of we really need to be looking at everything, that no stone should be unturned. We really need to be asking all of these questions and encouraging parents to make sure that the medical people in their life are dealing with these specific issues, which means working collaboratively. And that is what Dr. Granpeesheh has been about through so much of her career. And she took heat for this, my friends, because there is a school of thought amongst the BA, I don't think that now the BACB, but there is a group of people who believe that when you are a behavior analyst, that is the only thing you deal with. And that's it, that there is behavior, and there are certain things that are behavior, and then you deal with it behaviorally. But sometimes behavior is influenced by medical factors. And if you don't, I understand you're not a medical person, so you can't prescribe the thing to get rid of the fungus. But if you're not saying to the family who has no idea, go to a medical doctor and then let's work with them to make sure that we get to the most progress, we're leaving a lot of progress on the table. And why would we do that? Why can't we work collaboratively? So that has been Dr. Granpeesheh's passion for a very long time. And I was the beneficiary of this. And she trains her people to this so that they're looking for things. People ask me all the time, what are all the things that we did for Jem? And obviously we did ABA, and we did ABA intensively, but it's not the only thing that we did, because we were encouraged to look at him as a whole person who has wants, desires, and needs, and challenges, and sometimes medical issues. Like when they said to us, you need to take him to a developmental ophthalmologist. Yeah, I think ophthalmologist. Who was able to identify that he was having problems focusing his eyes. When he would try to focus them, they would literally vibrate. And that was not a symptom of autism. It was a symptom of this one particular individual. And it had not been noticed or treated because everybody was looking at all the autism things, right? Including me. But CARD had said to us, you need to take him, and he was diagnosed and he was given exercises, and what a difference it made. What a difference it made. And he learned faster once he got his eyes to be working in conjunction. That's just, one thing. So there was, you guys know the history of CARD, and that Dr. Granpeesheh founded CARD. She built it into this fabulous place with centers all over the United States, and then felt that it had a bigger mission. And so she sold the company and to people who said that they had a bigger vision, and she retired. And she earned that. She totally earned that. If you know the story, you know that it did not work out. It did not work out the way that it should have worked out. And within a couple of years, that company who had been handed a very robust company, filed bankruptcy. And during the period of time that they had CARD, Dr. Granpeesheh and I had started a different venture. We had built up the Autism Media Network, and we were working on a whole bunch of things and doing presentations where Dr. Granpeesheh would talk about what am I missing? So often you guys will write into us and say, well, we've done this and we've done this and we've done this. But often you say, what am I missing? And so we were doing presentations about, and I was really just supporting her. She's the one that knows all about this, and I just am in the role to support her. But we were doing presentations called What Am I Missing? And talking about all the things that Dr. Granpeesheh talks about here on the show, like, what is their sleep like? What is their diet like? Are we maximizing the services that you have? All the different things. Have we looked at this medically? What kind of testing have we done? The whole big picture of what's going on. And then, of course, she got the phone call that, okay, they're filing bankruptcy, and do you want to buy your company back? And I remember sitting in these chairs with her, and she said, I really want to buy my company back. I don't want to see it end this way. This is not the way that it should go. But she said to me, Shannon, it's that thing about if you had to do something over again, what would you do differently? And she said, there needs to be more emphasis on this. And I, she spent time thinking about what do you call that? And then came back and said, it's medically enhanced ABA. I don't want to, change what we do. We do ABA, but we want to do ABA at the highest possible level, medically enhanced ABA, where we're looking at the whole individual and taking into consideration what do they need, what else is happening that may be throwing off the balance of the ecosystem. And so she coined this term, and it's a term that's picking up all kinds of speed because you know why? Because it makes sense, right? So let's take just a minute to talk about some of the different things that if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't even know, what I should be doing with my child. First of all, and it doesn't matter whether your child is 2 or 6, 17 or 36, I want to take just 1 minute and talk about ABA, because ABA is what I was seeing last night at that wonderful center. ABA is a teaching method that has been around for a long time. And let's remember that ABA, it's not just for autism. ABA was used for a really long, it's a really old science, and it was used and it continues to be used for lots of other things. Fortune 500 companies use it, and they use it in conjunction with their employees because it helps to get to peak performance. Aren't we all excited that we're going to be watching the Olympics? And if you watch the little interviews that they do with the athletes and with their trainers, the trainers use the principles of ABA to train the Olympic athletes. Because again, if you're doing ABA right, it looks at what motivates an individual, and it partners that with teaching them in a really effective way to learn the thing by breaking it down. So they're using the principles of ABA, and some of them will shout it out and some of them don't. But my point is, ABA is considered the most effective teaching method for just about anything that you want to do. If there's something that you've been hankering to do, like, I don't know, maybe, there's a dance move that you want to learn how to do because you've seen it and you're like, oh, I really want to learn how to do that. But and you've tried to mimic it. Maybe you've seen the video on TikTok and you're like, I want to be able to do that, but it's going too fast for you. And you don't have the mind-body connection to learn how to do it. Well, if you had somebody who was there and said, okay, we're going to start with just this. I remember when Rami Malek did Bohemian Rhapsody, and somebody was talking about, how did you learn how to do all this stuff? And he said, I had this great choreographer who broke it down for me, who said, okay, let's pretend that you've got a pizza and that you're going to take the pizza and you're going to do like this. And he goes, and I learned how to do this dance move because I was doing the pizza, right? They broke it down into these little elements for him, gave him something that made sense so that he wasn't, because he wasn't understanding what they were doing with their hand. But once they said, oh, it's a pizza and you got to keep your hand flat, it made sense to him. So that's ABA. ABA says, we're not going to expect you to learn the whole thing all at once. We're going to teach you in the learning style that's most effective for you, and we're going to break it down. That's what ABA is. And that's why it's a wildly effective teaching method that also happens to work with individuals on the spectrum. Because if done properly, and hear that asterisk that I just said, done properly, it takes into consideration the individual, how they learn, what's motivating to them, and it breaks it down into bite-sized morsels so that they can actually learn it and enjoy it. That's what ABA is, my friends. Now, have there been people who have misused things in the name of ABA? You betcha. You absolute betcha. And there are some people that make me really mad that they even say that they're doing ABA. And let me also say that there are lots of individuals who are adults who are on the spectrum who tell the stories of how ABA traumatized them. And you will never hear me negate that, because I was not there. I was not in that room. That's their experience. And I'm not about saying to somebody that their experience is not their experience. But I can tell you that if somebody was actually following the principles of ABA, that should never have happened. It doesn't change if it did happen, and I'm as incensed as you are. And I say to parents all the time, be very diligent, no matter who you're taking your child to. I don't care if it's the best pediatrician in the world. I wouldn't be walking away and leaving them alone with my child without a whole lot of things in place, right? You got to be diligent. You got to be watching and make sure. But the principles of ABA say that it's got to be reinforcing for the person. It has to take their learning style into consideration. Do people misuse that? Yes. You must be diligent. But it's not okay ever for someone to be traumatized. Let me say that. And in the name of anything, right? But correctly done ABA leads to very happy children who are happy to learn. And I was surrounded by them last night and watching them learn and grow. And if you need to see good quality ABA, contact me. I will find a way for you to be able to see it. It's hard because we don't want to break anybody's hip, but I'll find a way for you to see it. Okay, so that's an important part, because you can do everything under the sun to help a person to be as healthy as possible. But if you're not teaching them and teaching them in a way that uplifts them and makes it feel like they can learn, right, that they're capable, even if it's in small increments, then what are you doing? And I really want to be very clear that for me, and for so many people that I know, we are looking and seeing human beings, and human beings have a right to be able to communicate what they need. First of all, I think that's a civil rights issue, and to be heard, right? To be heard when they're trying to communicate what they need. And I don't think that happens unless we educate, to assume that everybody's just going to be able to figure that out on their own. We don't. We set up schools and we have programs to help people to learn. And if we say, this group of people, we're not going to educate them, to me, that's really, really wrong. So I believe in giving people tools to empower them. And that includes individuals who are on the spectrum, but it must be respectful, right? So ABA is a really important component. And if you're not doing ABA, and here's the other thing with ABA, it has to be done at an intensity that's right for that individual. And, this is true of so many things. If you were going to learn how to play the guitar, how would you start? And let's say your goal is you want to be proficient at guitar. You don't want to just be able to pick it up and play one chord. You want to be able to play a song, and you want to be able to learn new songs, and you want to be proficient at it. And it's your life's desire that you want to learn how to play the guitar. Anybody would say to you, okay, well, first of all, you got to have some sort of an instructor. It could be in person or online or a video that you're watching, but you've got to learn the proper techniques to be able to do this. You can off-road it a little bit and create your own techniques, but you got to start someplace knowing some basic things. So you got to have some form of expertise working with you. And then the big element, lots and lots of practice. Lots and lots of opportunities to practice and get it in your body and learn and get better at these techniques, right? That's true of anything. You want to golf, you want to learn how to speak Spanish. You need to have somebody who's helping you to know that you're doing it at a certain level that makes sense, and lots of practice. So what we know from the research from ABA is that is also true. And especially for little kids, they become sponges and they want to learn. So the initial research, which Dr. Graham Pichet was a part of, for kids that showed high levels of effectiveness for little kids was 40 hours a week. That's not the only prescription. And not every 4-year-old needs 40 hours. But I would say that they need somewhere between 25 and 35, if not 40. But it changes as kids get older. And that's an important thing to know, that it's a very individual diagnosis. But the intensity. You need to be able to give them that level of intensity. So once you have that, and I would prioritize that really above a lot of things. But because that's going to help your child to learn how to learn. Okay, I would definitely prioritize that over everything that the school has to offer. And I do mean everything. I love a good OT, and I love a good SLP, speech and language pathologist. And I love school. I'm a former school teacher. I'm not anti-school, but I'm anti having a child be in school and waste their time. And unfortunately, for kids that are little, it's a waste of their time. And everybody keep in mind, it's not funded well, so you don't have the right ratio. If you have a kid that's in a classroom and that 1 adult to 12 kids, the learning rate is going to be much slower than if you have it 1-to-1, which is what ABA is. So, okay. Once you have all that, then there's other things that we want to talk about. And certainly one of the first things that we talk about with medically enhanced ABA is taking, a scan of this child head to toe. Let's look for clues. And literally start at their feet. What is going on with their feet? Is this a child who won't wear anything on their feet? What's unique about them with their feet? Are there only certain kinds of shoes that they'll wear, only certain kinds of socks? Will they never wear socks? Are they barefoot everywhere? These are clues. What is going on with their skin? Our skin is our biggest organ in our body, and its chief thing, not only to protect, but it also helps you to detox. Everything that goes through your body, it goes through many different filters, and then it offloads from your skin. So are we seeing eczema? There's a million other things, and I'm not a skin expert, but what's happening with their skin? Do they bruise easily? Do they not bruise at all? Everything is a clue, right? And everything should be discussed either with a really good pediatrician or with a functional medicine doctor. Functional medicine doctors are people who are going to look at everything and not discount anything, because everything is clues. So we're looking at their skin. We're looking at things like the nail beds. We're looking at their hair. We're looking at their scalp. We're looking at, are they a kiddo who's got a rash in different places? Like, are we seeing eczema on the elbows and the knees? Are we seeing rashes around their genitals? Are we seeing a rash around or redness around their anus? These are all clues. Are we seeing a kiddo who has like red spots around on different places on their face? Or even when they eat certain acid foods, that their lips get swollen and red. These are all clues. Nothing is left off the table, right? So we're taking that full body scan and going, what is unique about this child that, and you may even say, oh, but that's something that everybody in our family has. Okay, but it's a clue. It's a clue, and it should not be left off the table. Then Then I want to turn to the inside. Once we've looked at the whole outside of everything that's going on the outside, what's going on in the inside? And that starts with, what are you putting in? What does this child drink and how much do they drink? Ooh, right? I don't know that anybody ever asked me that except for Card. What does your child drink? Because everything that they drink or eat is a clue to what's going on the inside. I always ask families, what is a typical day of meals for your child? And include, I have a family member, I'm not going to say names because I don't want to get in trouble, but I had the opportunity when this individual was little, that his parents left him with me for a week, and this child never drank water. Never, ever, ever drank water. This child drank juice that was straight up juice, and I did not understand this. This was a little kid. And when I asked them, they were like, oh, no, he won't drink water. And they came a week later to pick up their child and were mad at me because he was a different child. He was drinking water. And he looked different. He literally looked different after a week of having water. He was like a plant that had some water and he needed water. He was having all kinds of constipation issues and suddenly he didn't have them. And the parents were not happy with me because they were like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, could you spend a minute with him and see, he feels better. He's having water. Why would you be mad at that? Kids need a certain amount of fluids. And, so what are they drinking? And part of that, a good pediatrician or functional medicine doctor will look at their gums and their teeth to get a feel for it and listen and smell their breath, right? Check their noses and check their ears, see what's going on. But what goes in has an effect on what happens. And it totally does. I know that people got so mad years ago when this whole idea was introduced, that part of what's going on with our kids is diet. People got so fatutzed about it. And there was a whole school of thought of autism has nothing to do with what you eat, nothing whatsoever. And to simplify it and say that it's, partially diet, people were incensed. Like in some way you were insulting their children or autism by saying that there is something going on with diet. And I didn't understand this. I didn't understand this at all because I'm a person who has food allergies. And I know when I eat something, there's things I could never, if I had wheat, I could never do this show. I would never be able to sit here and have a conversation with you because I would be a mess. Literally, when I get a wheat infraction, it feels like there are bumps underneath my skin. It feels literally, they talk about your hackles being raised and I'm hot and I can't get a grip on, and so I'm angry and I'm emotionally I know when that feeling comes up, I'm like, oh, wheat infraction, and I take a Benadryl and I go to bed because otherwise I am a mess and I am a Bubba witch. I am not capable of being around people and being polite because I can't, and it's emotional. I can't regulate myself. I have no control. So I already know that that's what it feels like if I ingest wheat. What is that like for a 3-year-old who doesn't yet have conversation? Do you know? And doesn't have self-awareness and doesn't know I'm not supposed to feel this way. And people who say, well, what you eat doesn't have an effect on your behavior. I'm like, okay, let's take a beer and I'm going to pour a beer and you're going to drink this beer. You're going to chug it down and then tell me that it doesn't affect your behavior. Nothing changed, but you ingested a liquid and your behavior's not changed. Please stop. Of course, what you eat and drink affects your behavior. It's just that for a lot of people, it doesn't affect it enough for you to hit a panic button. But what if we look at our kiddos and say, maybe this cumulatively, along with 85 other things, has some effect? And it's not true for everybody. There is no one size fits all here. But, I remember being at an OT evaluation for my child while we were waiting he had just gotten his autism diagnosis, but now there was an OT assessment. And I was talking to the OT, and she was talking about, at the time, there was a very big program that was called the astronaut training program. And it was a thing where you got a lazy Susan and you put your child on it. There were all these positions and you would spin your child. And it helped to regulate inner ear. Okay. Now I think people think that that's crazy, except that for some of our kids, it made a huge difference. That their inner ear was regulated and in tune with their brain, and that made it easier for them to access language. It truly did. But I don't know why that's not popular right now. I still know some people that are doing it, but it's not as popular. But I remember saying to her, well, that's kind of crazy. Is there anything else that I need to know about? Anything else that people are saying helps build language? My child had language and lost it. I want the language back. And she said, well, some people say that gluten-free diet is helpful with that. And I said, gluten? What's gluten? My child doesn't have any gluten. What's gluten? I don't know. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, my child's not having that. And the woman looked at me and she goes, oh, well, gluten is, it's the protein in wheat. And I went, what? And I didn't know what gluten was because I had an allergy to wheat. So I had never heard of the term gluten. But when she said, oh, it has something to do with wheat, it was like all these things. I was like, well, gosh, of course. And then a week later, I found out that there was something called the gluten-free, casein-free diet. Now, it's not effective for everyone. And we know that. There have been lots of studies and it doesn't work for everyone. But it does work for some kids, and the kids that it does work for, it can sometimes have a huge impact. And that was certainly the case for my child. That once we removed the gluten and the casein is the protein in milk, and that was bigger. I got to be honest, that was bigger. When we took that out, he stopped having the huge tantrums that were meltdowns that were epicosity. They just went poof. And if you doubt that, there is an episode of the Phil Donahue. It's older than Dr. Phil. Phil Donahue, who used to be, he's passed now, but he was married to Marlo Thomas. But the Phil Donahue show, and it's like from 1983, and it's on YouTube, and he got a lot of flack for it because it was considered completely unethical. But they brought in kids into the studio that have a milk reaction, and the kids were sitting there and you could see the kids, how they were and everything. And then they said, okay, we're going to have all the kids drink milk. We're going to go to a commercial break and we're going to come back. And what was unethical about it was these are human beings, and we know that they're having a milk reaction, but for the purpose of television and showing people, because people didn't believe what it could do. And so that evidence is there. I'm not saying it's ethical. I would never do that to my child on a camera, especially, or ever. But anyway, they gave the kids milk. They went to the commercial break. They came back, and those same kids who were sitting peacefully and playing on the stage were hysterical and screaming and running around and pulling their hair and just having meltdowns because they were having a milk allergy. So, and that when we pulled the milk from my son's diet, night and day difference. And then he could sit and learn because he wasn't having all these tantrums. The gluten also helped, though, and my son began to grow language. It wasn't the only thing, but it was a place to start. Now, here's the rub, and this is why people get so antsy about the gluten-free, casein-free diet, is because it's not one of those things that you can go on it and say, but for dinner, we'll have a treat, right? It's an all or nothing diet. You're either gluten-free and casein-free or you're not. And yes, built into the diet, every once in a while, you're supposed to do a challenge, which is basically what they did on the Dr. Phil show, where you give the child the thing that you think they're reactive to and see if they're still reactive to it. It's really super not fun. But, it's what allergists even do. So the gluten-free, casein-free for us was a gateway in. But I have to tell you that anymore, that's not how we recommend that you start. If your child is having food issues, that one of the things with medically enhanced ABA that we recommend is that first you remove as much pesticide from their diet as possible. Because a lot of studies have shown that there is a direct correlation between the amount of pesticide in a child's urine and its pesticide residue, and their amount of ADHD-like behaviors. So it's things like not being able to focus, not being able to sit still, not being able to self-regulate, right? Directly related. So if their pesticide level is here, then those ADHD behaviors are here. If the pesticide level is here, the ADHD-like behaviors are here. I can go into what the connection is, but studies have shown that that is the case. And so removing as much pesticide as you can without going crazy is the ticket. We've done lots of shows about this. You can look them up and look up all the diet shows that we've done to hear more about this. But so first step is removing the pesticides. Next step is removing artificial colors and flavors, because here in the United States is in almost everything. It's just insane the amount of artificial colors and flavors that companies have put into things. And they don't allow them in other countries. In Europe, they would never allow that in a kid's food. So it takes a little bit of practice and time, research, but getting rid of as much of that as you humanly possibly can. And if you do, you will start to notice when there's an infraction with that your kid will be having meltdowns, and you'll go, okay, I think I need to be more, stringent about that. But then after that, the next thing that we recommend that you do is greatly reduce the amount of sugar that is in the child's diet. And by sugar, I mean, of course, sugar, whether that's brown sugar, turbinado sugar, coconut sugar, white sugar, but also for some of our kids, they're so reactive that for a period of time, you might need to reduce their amount of fruit. And then, there are little tweaks that there are some fruits that are higher in salicylic acids. And if you find that your child is very reactive to those, you might have to reduce or totally eliminate certain fruits from your child's diet for a period of time, not forever, right? And then once you've done all of those things, that's when you try the gluten-free, casein-free diet. And if you get traction with that and are still looking for more, there's other diets that you can look at. There's too many to mention here on the show. And every kiddo is different. And so there's books, there's websites. I will tell you that Nourishing Hope with Julie Matthews, great resource. Get her book, go to her website. Julie is amazing. She has webinars, Julie Matthews, Nourishing Hope, to find out more about all the diets. They did a study a couple of years ago where they compared like 16 different diets and what they did for individuals on the spectrum. Really useful stuff. So check that out. But once you've taken care of diet, and I won't say that they're mutually exclusive, but if you get the diet under control, sometimes it helps with so many other things automatically. But sleep is a big, huge, right? If you don't have the sleep piece, and sometimes it's hard to get the sleep piece working until you've gotten some of the diet things working, because if your kiddo is all, maybe the only thing they're eating is sugar or, white things, because there's also textures and all these things. There's a whole lot to be done in the food area. And sometimes if you don't have some of that under control because they're really sugared up on carbs and sugar, it's hard to get the sleep thing under control. But there are so many things that you can do to help with sleep. Ignoring a sleep issue is not the thing that helps. I can speak to this with all authority that acting like, well, they'll just grow out of it doesn't work. You really got to be proactive on the sleep thing, and you got to keep an eye on it. And there's so many things behaviorally that can help with sleep, as long as we're looking at all of the medical things as well. I'm running out of time, so I got to get to a bunch more categories. The school thing is a big consideration because for a lot of our kids, it's the biggest consistent number of hours that they're someplace. And if the school thing isn't working, it can upend the whole party. Because if you're trying very hard to set up behavioral boundaries at home and you're trying to help your child to achieve, but they go to school and school is an entirely different thing and in any way diminishes their self-esteem, or they're being bullied and they don't feel safe, Oh, it can throw absolutely everything off. We've seen children who will not sleep because they're having nightmares about school, who are in constant anxiety, who begin behaviors like picking their skin because they don't feel safe at school. So having the school piece work is a really, really important. I'm trying to think about what all the other categories are. For some of our kids, they need supplements that because of some of the things that are going on, if they have this supplement or that. I will say this, the big conversation this last year was all about leucovorin. And I don't mind that. I'm happy. We've done some shows about leucovorin. What is distressing to me is that I'm hearing from a lot of parents who are just putting their kids on leucovorin without testing them because they're getting bad advice, frankly. And we're really trying to pare down on that here, and not have people on the show who are saying, "Oh, just try this," because remember, our first job is to be taking care of these people and not doing anything that causes harm, right? I mean, right? So there is a test that's called a FRAT test, FRAT. And and it's a very simple test that you can do, and send away, and you get the test results, and it will tell you if your child is someone who will benefit from leucovorin. But it will also tell you if your child would benefit from, there's another drug that's not getting the leucovorin attention, right? That is very beneficial for a lot of kids, or if neither one of those will help. And I love when I'm talking to people about this and they're like, Shannon, you're missing the boat. I mean, they're testing these kids and like 78% of them are showing that they would benefit from leucovorin. And I'm like, that's incredible. That's wonderful. That means that 22% of the kids won't. That means that 22% of the kids need something else. And that the time that their parents spend on leucovorin, which giving these massive doses of leucovorin to a kiddo that doesn't need it, you can't tell me that that is good for them. You're putting something in that the body doesn't need. I don't know what the consequences are, but don't tell me that it's nothing. Remember, what goes in has an effect. So please do the FRAT test and make sure that you're giving your child something that they actually need. But if the FRAT test comes back and says that your child needs leucovorin, yeah, sure. And it's helping a lot of people. We're seeing some amazing things. But don't just throw things at your child assuming that it's what's right for them. There's so many other things. Thank goodness Dr. Granpeesheh has written a book. It's not published yet, but about all of these things, the what's missing, if you missed the presentations that we were doing during the time. And she's done some shows about it too. But all of these things come under the heading of medically enhanced ABA. Because if you want to give somebody their best chance to learn and to grow and to be who they are, not who somebody else is, not what you thought they were going to be when they were born, but to be fully themselves, fully self-actualized, and to be able to enjoy the things they enjoy and to be able to communicate their needs and be safe in the world and have relationships with people that are meaningful to them, then we owe it to them to look at them in their entirety, their entire medical needs. There needs to be more research. Yes, can we all agree on that? But while we're waiting and hoping for all of that, what we want to do is make sure that we're making the most of their time and the most of their health. Their health is a key component to them enjoying their lives and being able to learn. So that's what medically enhanced ABA is all about. I hope you're jazzed about it. I know we are. And we are all really on this bandwagon of making sure that everybody knows that there is more progress to be had if we're willing to open up the scope a little bit and look at the person as an entire individual with rights, needs, and medical challenges that will prevent them from being able to learn. So there we have it. We are back next week, and we've got all kinds of amazing things going on. So we hope that you guys will join us. We will reconnect with Brad and figure out what happened today and when we can reschedule him, because I really want you guys to learn about EEG to go. And we appreciate you guys. So happy to be on this journey with you. Please write in any questions that you have for us, and we'll see you next week. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.